Hello. Have you ever thought of traveling alone? Can be scary. I know. I've done it. In this video, I'll tell you about my plans to travel in the future and my plans when I traveled alone, and it was a bit scary. Welcome to my channel. My name is Stephen, and thank you for joining me on the Boomer Man's Adventures. If you've ever traveled alone, please comment below and let me know how you went on. How was the planning? How did you think you'd be traveling alone? And was it as scary as you might have thought it was? So I'll start with my travel plans. Okay, a little while ago, I'd suffered a bereavement and it hit me quite hard. And I thought to myself, how am I going to get over this? I can't continue being at home, feeling sad, feeling lonely. So I thought to myself, I've always loved travel, always. From the moment I was 16 and joined the army and went to Germany, to my first trip abroad when I was 19 and I went to Tunisia, and I was amazed to see camels on the beach, etc., etc. But this year, I thought to myself, I had a sabbatical for anywhere between 8 months and a year, and I thought, what am I going to do with that time? And I thought, I'm going to go traveling. Initially alone. I knew some people around the globe that I'd met on previous travels or became friends, but ultimately I was traveling alone. Yeah, and I was a bit worried about it, thinking, would I cope? Would I miss my partner or my husband of all those years? Now I was traveling alone, but I did it. So this is what I did in my sabbatical. First of all, I booked about 6 weeks in Canada, in the Toronto region. I had a friend over there, so I thought I can't come to much harm. So I booked 6 weeks there. And then when I came back, or actually I'd already booked this before I come back, but when I come back, I knew I was going to do some more. So I booked a month in India. Yep, India has always been my favorite destination, my favorite country. I've done top to toe, Golden Triangle. I've been across to Chennai, across to Bombay or Mumbai, as it's called now. I've been right south to Purvar and Kerala, and I've done everything in between. And it is a most intoxicating and exciting place. I wouldn't have done it, I have to say, exclusively by myself because I'm not brave enough to jump on trains that may or may not get me there. It's an absolute cacophony of sound and smells, and I knew I needed somebody to meet me at a certain point and take me there. That's the kind of traveller I am, so I'm not that adventurous. So I booked a month in India, and then when I came back, I had a little while before I took off again, and I went to South America for 6 weeks. Now, this was an odd one, and I'll get to that. So if you stick with me, you'll find out how did I travel through South America in 6 weeks as a solo traveller. But first, nipping back to Toronto, I had an amazing time. I met a friend who I'd met a few years back on a cruise, and she introduced me to her friends. I flew alone, I travelled alone, and I was a bit unsure. I knew I was going to get there because I am that kind of person. I have a travel compass built in, and I seem to know how to get there, and I do my research in advance. But I did a whole 6 weeks in the summer, and I went to all sorts of places. Yes, Niagara Falls. I went for wine tasting. I did various things, and I got to know people out there just because I decided to go and think, I don't want to stay at home. I don't want to knit quilts. I don't want to be sad all the time. I want joy in my life. And I know that travel brings me joy. Even traveling alone brings me joy. It brings me a sense of purpose, and it gives me time to think. So I went to Canada for 6 weeks, and it was a glorious summer, and I was really spoilt and looked after. And when I came back, I thought, right, I've got India to look out for and look towards. And I decided to go to Madhya Pradesh, which is in the heart of India. And what I wanted to do was to photograph tigers in the wild. 30 days I'd booked, and I know what it's like out there. You can spend 8 hours a day in their vehicle. It's called a gypsy, but you can spend 8 hours in a gypsy, 5 hours in the morning from 5:30 onwards to 10:30, and then you come back and you have a bit of a snooze in the day, and you go out for 3 or 4 more hours at dusk, and you can see a monkey. You could be out there all day and see a monkey or a deer, and very occasionally you get to see tigers. Tigers that come out of the forest and meet you on the pathways. Huge tigers, roaring tigers. First of all, you hear the alarm calls from the macaques and the deer, and you know there's something around. And I often would go out with strangers. You know, these gypsies hold 4 people, so I would maybe join a couple, and I didn't mind that. I'm sociable. I'm fairly gregarious, so I could actually say hello to strangers, and if you smile at strangers, it often solicits a smile back, and that's really important if you're traveling alone. You know, if you really don't like people, then solo travel might be your thing, but that would be a bit too lonely for me, and I just need the company of people occasionally when I want it on my terms. So I spent sort of 27 days, I think, in Madhya Pradesh, going out most days photographing butterflies, tigers, macaques. The bird life was prolific, gorgeous bird lives, you know, sunbirds and other birds, ginormous bats that hung from the trees, you know, just waiting there and snoozing all day. After about the 27th day, I then took myself off to Goa, and a couple of people that ran this particular camp in Madhya Pradesh were going to join me. I did feel a bit more isolated there, I have to say. Goa is a party place. You know, I booked into a resort that offered some wellness activities and massage and mindfulness exercises, and that really was very, very isolating. I felt a bit alone there because, you know, it's nice to come back after a day's activities and talk to somebody about it and then enjoy that. But I did find a sense of purpose. I did, you know, enjoy it. It is a strong word, but I came to find myself at peace with it, and I did do it. So I completed the 30 days and then came back home again. I'd Airbnb'd a couple of rooms out in my house, and they were looking after it, so I wasn't too worried about leaving my house. And some gorgeous, gorgeous neighbours who became good friends looked after my tiny dog as well, which was lovely. And so I came back to all the things that were familiar. And then before long, I'd booked 6 weeks in South America, going to Chile and Peru and Bolivia and Argentina. Now, this was very different, and this was the most solo thing I'd done. I'd gone and booked an overland trip. There were about 20 people, I guess, on this trip, all coming from different parts of the world. A good 50% of those were single females. And then we all traveled on the back of what could be described as an army vehicle, bright orange, you know, so you couldn't miss it. The company, I think, is still in business, but it came to fall after COVID, but then moved on again to another company. But that company is still available, and I will put some links in so you can see what I did. But it was an adventure. It was wild camping. You pulled up at the side of the road, and this is where you were going to sleep for the night. And I have to say, I don't camp. Well, I do camp, but I don't camp on the floor. You know, I do like my comfort. So I was a little bit concerned. What have I got myself into? Wild camping, going to the toilet in the woods with a spade. You know, it was all very good. And I went to and saw some amazing things. I spent 2 days riding with the gauchos on the Argentinian plains. I went to Mendoza and drank Malbec, my favorite wine. I'd had steak. I'd seen condors over the Andes in certain places. We'd seen witchcraft in Bolivia and tiny shriveled dead cats hanging up, and all this cultural immersion was just amazing. After about 3 weeks, my sister and her niece said they'd like to join me. So they flew out for the remaining 3 weeks. They loved it. I don't think they were as keen on the wild camping as I grew to love, but they did they did fare well. I have to say. I don't think once in the 3 weeks did they ever go for a poo in the woods. But do you know what? They hang on. They were troopers, and they did enjoy it. But I got to know 20 strangers over that 6 weeks, and I follow some of them through social media now, but we didn't become firm friends. And that wasn't the idea behind it. This was me after 30 years of traveling with somebody who I adored, and then not having that person, still wanting to go traveling, and traveling is the love of my life. Um, so that was quite an adventure. Coming up, I've been to all sorts of places in between, but coming up in November, October, I've got a very exciting trip planned. I'm going to Antarctica, which will be my seventh continent, and I would have done seven, and I can happily sit at home then and knit those quilts I talked about. But yeah, really, really excited to go to Antarctica, fly to Argentina via Madrid, from London, 5 days in Argentina, going to go to Evita's house and going to go to the museum, going to see some tango, drink some more Malbec, although at the moment I'm not drinking alcohol, but I might make an exception for that. And it's only because my tummy gets upset, that's all. And then pick up a boat, take an internal flight to Ushuaia and overnight there in the mountains, and then pick up a boat on the shore and do the dreaded Drake's Passage, which for anybody is familiar with that, you either get thrown about like a washing machine load, or you sail across like you would do on a calm lake. And you won't know which version you're going to get until you get on board. And then we'll see how we go with that. And then I'll be going to Antarctica and the South Georgian Islands for a few days. And I really, really hope to step on land and make that my seventh continent. I won't have finished traveling. Oh no, I've got lots of plans coming up, but I'll save those for another video. But I will be putting a video out about my build up to Antarctica, the actual trip itself, good, bad, and the ugly, and whether I've been sick multiple times on the Drake Passage or not. I'm going with my husband, Damon, who does get seasick, but I made him watch all of the worst YouTube videos of the Drake Passage crossing. And I did say, I'm going on my own, but I'd love your company. And he said, yep, I'll give it a go. So we're both going, we're with a couple of friends, and and we'll see what that's like. But you know what? If any of you are thinking about traveling alone, let me know in the comments below, and I will message you and tell you, what it's like and how scary it is at the beginning. But it is life affirming travel. It really is, if you can afford to do it, and not necessarily if you can afford to do it, but if you've got the wanderlust and the want and desire to do it, it doesn't have to be Antarctica, of course not. But, I went with my brother to Luxembourg in March. He's 64 and had never, ever flown or been outside the UK. And yep, he did it. He booked a flight with me and we went to Luxembourg, which was a glorious city because all the public transport is free. But he really enjoyed it. I don't know if he'll do much more, but for me, since I've been traveling at 16 on my first trip out to Germany, I've not stopped. And now traveling alone doesn't scare me. One trip I will mention that I did completely alone, even now I'm with my husband Damon, was a trip to Uganda to see the mountain gorillas. I knew years back when I was with my late husband that he wouldn't have been able to do that trek because it can be anywhere between 2 hours and 4 hours uphill. And I knew he wouldn't be able to do it. He had some difficulty with knees and an ankle. So I thought that was it. I wasn't going to do that. It was just a pipe dream. And I sort of resigned myself to the fact that I didn't do it. Unfortunately, when he did pass, after a suitable time, I thought to myself, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it by myself. Eamon at the time was working. I'd taken early retirement. And I thought, yeah, again, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to say no to things. I want to say yes to things. So I took myself off to Uganda. And for the entire week, I was just me and the guide who drove me about. and sometimes I'd go to a resort in the mountains, and there'll be hardly anybody there, and I would be by myself. And do you know what? It was all right. I mean, the sole purpose was to get on the floor with my kit and then go up those mountains and find Mountain Gorilla, which I did, and it was awesome and wonderful. I think I'll put a picture here to show you some of the things I saw. And then we did chimpanzees, and chimpanzees my favorite primate, and we saw chimpanzees flying, not flying, falling around on the trees and mucking about and being and just playing like chimpanzees do. And again, I've got a picture here to show you. But it was glorious that. So I have done some quite adventurous solo trips and some UK ones by myself too. And it is a bit daunting at first when you think about it. Cruising is also fabulous for solo people. We've met solo people on cruises and they don't mind. They want that time to themselves. They want the daytime adventures too. And then they want to go back to their suite or their cabin and just relax and take time for themselves. So if you're thinking about doing some solo travel, it isn't too daunting. It's a little scary, but you know, if you've got the means, go for it. You probably won't regret it, and you will meet other people. If you're looking on YouTube now, you're a sociable person and you're looking at people's lives like mine. If you do like this video, and you want more adventures coming up, then do like and subscribe. It really helps the channel build and grow. It's a fledgling channel, but I've got lots of adventures to tell you. Some funny ones, some good ones, and some not so good. So do have a look through what I've already posted, and do like and subscribe until we meet at the next one. And the next video is going to be when you're tired and you want to go traveling and money's tight, how do you make a little extra to take that trip? Well, I've got another video coming up in a week or so that will show you how you can make a little bit extra money if you've got the wanderlust coursing through your veins. Okay, thank you very much for joining me. Now, if you're wondering why have I done a video on solo travel and done solo travel quite a bit, why have I got this sign behind me that says better together? Well, as much as I enjoyed solo travel, as much as I built the courage to go and do some solo travel in Uganda, in India, in Canada, in South America, I personally feel that better together for me works for me. I love the fact that I can go traveling with somebody and offload the day's events and exciting adventures and talk about them with somebody over dinner with a glass of wine. Solo travel is great. Some people love it and will do nothing but solo travel. And I like a mixture of the both. But if I'm honest, I really, for me, think I'd like to travel together. And for me, better together than not at all, I think, is what I'd end with. But yeah, good luck, and let me know what adventures you've got planned in the comments below, and look out for another video soon. Okay, bye.